Hello. Welcome to my first Couch Tomatoes headcanon. So basically, the thing that I'm going to talk about it's where I pick a movie that is important in a series or in a any kind of series or canon or any kind of franchise that I really like or I want to see continue. So basically, sometimes franchises make really bad movies. And that is, I don't want to watch something if it's bad. So, because my ADHD-addled brain, so basically I just create my own version of the movie in my head. That way I can enjoy the movie. Because once I create a headcanon, what actually happened goes away. So for this first one I'm doing, if you've watched our video this week, you know how I feel about the Eternals. So this week I am going to be doing a headcanon about the Eternals. And I hope you guys like it. Leave a comment. Subscribe if you do. Leave a comment if you do or don't like it. Tell me what parts you liked about the rewrite, what parts you didn't like about the rewrite. Just, tell me. But I'm going to try and keep this succinct as best as I can so that you fully understand what's been changed, what can stay the same, but overall just a way to hopefully make a better movie. So the way I would start the Eternals is very similar to how the original movie was started, but just rearranged. So I would start the movie with the character of Cersei waking up from a nightmare or a dream of past things that she doesn't know about or doesn't remember. And basically, it's the same as before. She's running late to work. She works at a university as a history professor, and she shows up, and the character Dane Whitman, played by Kit Harington, is basically keeping her students busy until she gets there. We start with that, then we get to the really, the kind of nice character building moments or relationship building moments between Dane Whitman and Cersei, where they're both sitting there, they're going around, they're going to bars, they're singing and they're dancing and they're drinking and they're talking and they're having a good time, they're laughing, they're all these things. We get the introduction of Sprite, who is using her powers to basically impersonate a person who's older or appears older than she is. And then we get that scene where they're walking down the waterfront and Sprite and Cersei are talking, and basically Cersei says, "I'm going to tell him everything." And Sprite's like, "Are you sure he's ready for that?" And, and then, you got Dane, who's just kind of oblivious. He's just having a good time. And then that's when, you get your first deviant attack. And a lot of this fight I would keep the same, where they're trying to use their powers, and Dane sees them using their powers. He's like, "What the fuck?" And then the difference I would have is that when they get to the point where the Eternal is going to get destroyed, instead of Icarus showing up to kill the deviant, it's Gilgamesh and Thena. So they show up a lot sooner in the movie. Gilgamesh and Thena work together. They kill the thing. They basically explain that they were attacked and they killed that one, and they knew that they should probably get back together. And when they were coming to see them, anyway, so they fight off this deviant, and Cersei decides to tell Dane basically her entire story. She tells them they've been there since 7,000 years ago, and while she's narrating this, that's when we do that opening scene. We have no stupid opening crawl that's just the laziest thing you can do in almost any movie. I think only Star Wars was ever able to pull off an opening crawl. So you have this scene with like the ship coming in and them all being brought to life with the cosmic energy and everything. But while that's all happening, Cersei and Gilgamesh and Thena and Sprite are all taking turns narrating this to Dane. And Dane is going to be in a lot more of this movie, because to me, Dane is your connection, your human connection to these cosmic characters. You need a connection or else you're not going to be able to connect. So Dane is going to be that character. So now what they decide to do is, what we get is we get this long narrated sequence of their first fight 7,000 years prior, fighting deviants and getting introduced to early man. And so Cersei gives that conversation, but then we also get more conversations with Dane, dialogue, lots. I understand this still may feed into the exposition heavy parts of the movie. That was a mistake, but this part is we can get dialogue from each character explaining to Dane why their characters are legends, what they did in the past that inspired the legends that their characters are named after. Gilgamesh, Icarus, Thena or Athena, Sprite, and what a sprite is to Celtic mythology. Dive into that. Give us more backstory so that these characters feel more fleshed out. It's not that hard. Just an extra scene of dialogue would take care of pretty much a lot of the heavy lifting in the character development department. Also, of course, Cersei is going to explain all of the Eternals who came, and she's obviously going to reference Icarus, and she's not going to want to talk about it, and neither are any of the other Eternals. The only one who's going to feel comfortable talking about Icarus and how important he is Sprite, and that's going to be important later. Sprite basically explains that Icarus was the strongest, but now he's gone. We can leave it at that, and that kind of leaves things a little vague so that we have more to go on. So of course they're going to decide that if the Deviants are back, they need to get the team, the Eternals, back together. And they haven't seen Phastos or Kingo. They hadn't seen Thena and Gilgamesh for a very long time either, but they hadn't seen Phastos or Makari or Kingo for a really long time. And we're going to use that and use flashbacks to give us first an idea of the character, and then we're going to use flash forward to tell us where the character is currently. So the first, and obviously because he's, why would he doesn't want to leave Cersei alone, and because he's probably just genuinely wildly curious, Dane goes with them, because why wouldn't he? It's stupid that he didn't. Anyway, so if we want to cut back, we need to cut back to the other sequence that I kind of thought worked, which was in Babylon, because I thought it was done really well. We show them working to protect Babylon from the Deviants, working to improve the lives of the Babylonians through improved technology, but like that careful, measured increase in technology. And we go from Babylon, we get this cool montage of all of the Eternals fighting through the ages and the centuries, showing different costumes and settings, fighting the Deviants all over the world, and slowly but surely removing the Deviants from the planet, or at least as far as they know. We get different costumes until 1500, which is, I think, if I remember correctly in the movie, that's when the team broke up. So this is when Ajax explains that Earth is there to cultivate new Celestials. The team is distraught, except for Icarus, because Icarus is a true believer in the cause. He's a true believer in Arishem. So basically the way I would do it is they have a scene where after they've discussed where the Celestial is and what the Celestial is going to be, how it's going to birth from the core of the Earth and destroy everything basically, the Eternals have a vote. And the vote ends up going in favor of destroying Tiamat to save the humans who they've grown attached to. So, I mean, they had plenty of plot conveniences before, so you can just have a plot convenience of Phastos or they work together and they come up with a device that severs the link between the energy being fed to Tiamat. We basically say that if we don't stop this now, there's no way to stop it. This is the last chance before it's going to be inevitable. So what you do is you basically say that Phastos creates a device that severs the connection between the energy provided by intelligent life and the celestial, basically killing it in the womb, for lack of a better term. So they decide to do this, they do it, and then this is when Icarus, the true believer, just like the concept of that what they'd actually just done, he goes fucking crazy. He goes berserk, he attacks the others, and in the battle, he kills Ajax. And you can make it a little bit more brutal. I know this might be a little too brutal for the MCU, but this is what I would do. He rips that like weird little cosmic pearl that makes it so that he can communicate with Arishem. He takes that and he basically puts it in himself and he absorbs it, and obviously he's going to be psychically pulled away the same way all of them were whenever that thing went in. And while he's pulled away, they lock him down and they trap him and they hold him so that he can never get away. Now we've established our actual villain rather than the nonsensical, no true villain having movie that we actually had. So that's another thing that I would change doing that. Now we need to get into actually developing our characters. So the first thing I would do, the first character that they go to meet is Kingo. So I would have a scene set in the 1930s during Gandhi's hunger strike. And Kingo is having a conversation with Gandhi, basically trying to talk him out of the strike, saying it's not worth it. This life is fleeting. Why would you put yourself through this? Because he's clearly still reeling, even though it's been like a couple hundred years. For Eternals, like time is irrelevant. So he's still reeling from the killing of Tiamat. And you basically just say, have Gandhi have something along the lines of, people are in pain and held down, and the only way to improve their lives is to give them hope, strength, and joy. And this is an inspiration for him. So now we start seeing the Bollywood movies that he's making and how he's been making them for years, trying to help people improve their lives through joy. So he does that. We basically get the actual scene, which is one of the scenes that I did like in the movie. We get the scene with Kingo doing the Bollywood scene. They all are like, seriously, Kingo? And they're talking to him, but he's like super busy because he's this big star, and his manservant is there, Karun, who's like filming everything as like they're doing a documentary on the making of the movie, but he's not really listening. They go to do a second take and the music ramps up, but they get attacked by a deviant who's hunting them. So we get an entire fight scene with deviants attacking the set of Kingo's movie while the Bollywood music is blaring and they're fighting this deviant, which I just think would be really fun. Kingo's the one who kills it, and at the climax of the song, and then he's like, "Why didn't you tell me they're back?" And that's kind of the end of that scene. Then we get into the part of the movie that I think actually did work, the other flashback parts. So I would the Noche Triste, which was the night when the conquistadors basically sacked Tenochtitlan. It was that scene where Druig leaves and he takes a bunch of the people with him. Keep that. That was actually really cool. I liked that part. Keep that. Keep him having like now his little cult in the jungle. Keep that attack. But Gilgamesh is killed off screen. We don't see Gilgamesh get killed, so we don't know what killed him. But that way we can assume that it was the deviants that did it. So now you have Thena, who is basically married to Gilgamesh, who now can swear revenge on the deviants as a whole. Now we also get to them going back to recruit Phastos. Keep the Hiroshima thing. I think that was a very interesting beat in his character development. But now you have them meeting at his house. Obviously Icarus is not there, but you can have some fun back and forth between Kingo. Just have Kingo be the one who smashes the table. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be Icarus. It wasn't funny when it was Icarus. Let it be Kingo. He basically says, no, I just want to be here with my family. I don't even do that anymore. I only fix my kid's bike. I have no interest in building this like safe house. Then they get attacked by deviants, and it turns out he was basically lying. He's been doing it the entire time. So we get this like John Wick, weapons everywhere, Home Alone fight between a deviant and Fastos, who's just pulling guns out of cabinets and under tables and like pushing buttons and stuff. Is just like mashing up the deviant. I just think it'd be really cool. And then Fastos obviously after that would agree to go with them. And of course, his minivan, his family minivan, it's also a spaceship. It's how they travel to their actual ship. They realize that the only person who could have some idea, because it's the only person who has any knowledge above what they have, would be Icarus. So they have to go talk to Icarus. So now they go to their ship that they came on, where Makari has been taking turns with Sprite as the two people who would more likely than not have to leave periodically, so that basically they take turns because they have to leave society occasionally anyway, so that people don't start asking questions about why they don't age. Specifically Sprite. Makes most sense for Sprite to be one of the ones who looks after him, because she's a child and people would ask questions if a child never grows up. Anyway, logically, I just think it makes more sense. So they return to the ship for Makari, watching over Icarus. They ask him what's going on with the deviants, and he plays coy, but obviously Thena, who's just had it because her husband is now dead, so she's going to obviously threaten his life. He says he knows where they're coming from. He acts like it's the little cosmic thing. That's the reason why he knows that. But they don't really care at that point. They just want to get rid of the deviants. So you have this group of them, Makari, Thena, Cersei, Fastos, Dane. They go after the deviants, but Sprite, Druig, Kingo, and then Kingo's manservant, Karun, stay on with Icarus on the ship. So we cut to where the deviants are, that Icarus has told them where the deviants are, and Thena just goes ham on these things. She is just so angry and rage-filled, and she is just wiping them out. We get this really great fight scene of all of them fighting deviants, and the only one who realizes that there's something else going on here is the one who isn't connected, and it's Dane. Dane realizes that these things are just protecting something, so he starts looking around, and he finds like little baby deviants. The deviants are just wanting to live. They just want to exist. They're protecting this nest of their young. And with all the complicated history that they've gone through with protecting things and protecting lives, this gives them a genuine opportunity to look back on everything that they've done through their time period, specifically killing a celestial when it's still basically a baby. And that can really reverberate with them. And also the fact that they've decided to protect life. And this could be a huge changing moment, especially for Thena, because if Thena can forgive them and realize that they didn't go on the offensive on their own accord, because they're not smart. They're just pointed in a direction, basically. And they basically figure out someone pointed them in the right direction. So now we go back to the ship, and we get the scene between Sprite and Kingo where they're basically talking about Peter Pan. But in this case, if you're going to say that these guys did all of this stuff and basically take it away from humanity, go all in on that. Have Sprite, the storyteller, let's say she wrote Peter Pan. Say that she used the illusion abilities that she has to impersonate all of these different authors and storytellers down through history. You can talk about Chaucer. You can talk about, I can't remember his name, J.M. Barries, who wrote Peter Pan. You can talk about L. Frank Baum. Basically just reference all of the fairy tales that Disney has license to. It's not complicated. And then while you're having that conversation, you use the same conversation they had in the movie where Kingo says, I know that you were in love with him, but it was never going to work. He uses past tense. She says, you're right, I am in love with him. And he says, and he figures out that she's talking about it in the present tense. And before he can stop, Icarus has been released, and Icarus kills Kingo. He absorbs all of his cosmic energy, absorbs his powers, and he kills him. Now, Karun, who's been recording everything this entire time, he gets this on camera, and he panics. But he sends it to Cersei, who, as it's established in the movie, is obsessed with her cell phone. And, she's obsessed with her cell phone, but this is the first time where we get a payoff, because she gets the footage through her phone of Icarus talking about all this, and Makari and Thena just zip back to the ship as fast as they can, while the rest of them go in another ship. Basically, so we cut back to the ship, and Icarus is just reveling and beating the shit out of Druig, who is the one he's hated from day one. And he tells him everything. He tells him the whole story. He tells him how, since he knew that Sprite was in love with him, he basically manipulated that so that she's been letting him out of his little bonds for 500 years, and he's been setting things in motion the entire time to get back to their original mission. I even thought a quote that would be really good. As he's beating up Druig, he says something to Druig where he's like, I'm going to take your power from you, Druig. I'll take it to every world with an unborn celestial. I'll use your power to force the intelligent life to flourish, and I'll be absolved by Ereshkigal through my righteous deeds. Make Icarus the main villain. Make him a true believer. Explain that. Focus the story. So anyway, the rest of the characters come back and they try to fight against Icarus, but Icarus has absorbed the energy and the powers of the people he's already killed. So he has his already immense power, plus he has Gilgamesh's powers, plus he has Kingo's powers. So they just can't beat this guy. They put up a good fight, but at one point Dane tries to get involved to save Cersei, and he just kind of backhands away Dane like he's nothing. Cersei dives on him because she's in love with him, and realizing the relationship between them. And when he goes to kill both of them, you have this very fast, rapid-paced flashback sequence of all of the moments between Icarus and Cersei where they were in love. And when he hesitates, Thena kills him. Thena cuts his head off, because I think that would be cool. Anyway, after she does that, the movie ends with uncertainty. Druig decides to go with a few of the other characters to find the rest of the Eternals. That's the part I didn't mention. Let Icarus do an evil bad guy monologue to Druig, explaining everything, explaining to Druig that they're robots, explaining to Druig that they were created for this purpose, that they should follow their purpose. Actually, I already said that. Ajak explained that to them already when she decided that they should protect the humans. She was actually a good leader, and she said, hey, this is what we should do. And then you have Icarus basically saying that they made the wrong choice, and he's going to force them, and he's going to earn back Ereshkigal's good graces. But the movie ends with some of them leaving to go find the other Eternals, but the ones who have connections on Earth decide to stay on Earth and act as protectors, but also just be around their loved ones. Let Cersei stay with Dane, who's now, because throughout this movie, established this relationship more than just a scene and then a couple of FaceTimes. Phastos obviously wants to stay with his husband and his child. So you have Makari, Thena, and Druig go off to find the rest of the Eternals, and those two stay. We end the movie the same way the movie ended, with Ereshkigal basically appearing and just whisking away Cersei and Phastos to go face judgment. That's where the movie ends. Exactly where the movie ended in the other one. This is where I'm also going to change things a little bit. My post-credit scenes. The mid-credit scene is where Dane is going to pick up the ebony blade, the blade that will turn him into the Black Knight. But instead of being off camera and just his voice, show the character. The one who says, "Are you sure you want to do this, Mr. Whitman?" It's Blade. The director even admitted that it's Blade. So just show Blade. So now we can set up that future with those two characters between Blade and the Black Knight. And then your last one, instead of introducing Harry Styles as Star Fox, which is just, it's a terrible character and it's a stupid decision. So we're going to change that. Instead of it being that, the one teleporting onto the ship after Druig and Makari are having a conversation where why haven't we found any of the other Eternals yet? This is so strange. You have your little teleporty lights, and in walks Kang the fucking Conqueror. Jonathan Majors, full on Kang the Conqueror suit, walks in, looks around, looks at the Eternals and says, "Ah, I finally found the last ones." And then he pushes a button, starts to glow. The glow kind of expands outward and fills the screen, and then we cut to black. And that is how I reworked Eternals in my head so that I can like the movie. Also, these are things that I think would make the movie better. If you guys were either confused by something or you liked it, didn't like it, leave a comment. I'll read the comments, I promise. But anyway, I hope you liked it. And yeah, I'll see you later.